Thanks for listening to the Music Production Podcast. One of the best ways to keep up with my work is by joining the Music Production Club. My Music Production Club gets you access to my latest creations as soon as they're released. You also get exclusive packs, presets, samples, and templates that only come with the Music Production Club membership, as well as educational materials such as my books and my video courses. And then there's bonus materials you get just for joining. There's also a community of like-minded producers, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. In our Discord, we help each other make music, share tips and tricks, inspirations. We also have our live meetings online over Zoom. And during those meetings, we have some sort of musical challenge, and we spend the first hour making music and the second hour sharing our music. And I want to show you some music we made in one of our last meetings. The parameters to our challenge for this meeting were to use my Ghosts Ableton Live Pack, my Trip Hop Drums Ableton Live Pack, the Dank Verb Impulse Responses from Perform Module. Those are all included with your Music Production Club membership. And to use a scale you don't normally use that you're kind of unfamiliar with. Now I'd like to let you hear some of the music that we made during this live meeting. Here's a track called Aurora by Trev Phonic. And here's part of a jam from Psychotronic Squirt Gun. And this track was made by Sicken during the meeting. This track is by Animus Invidious, called Bazoo Falap. And here's what I made during our meeting. I used the whole tone scale. We all made these songs in about 45 minutes and then shared them with each other. And it's so cool that we had each other to kind of lean on, to motivate ourselves to do these tracks, to work together. And to hear what everyone made was so much fun. So much diversity in the sounds, all done with the same parameters, but totally different results. I'm really grateful to have a community of people that I can make music with like this. If you want to be part of this, check out the Music Production Club. Go to brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. My name is Brian Funk. This is the show about all things making music. And today on the show, I have Gert from Stavroz. Really cool organic electronic band that's been just coming off tour and just released their new EP, Kick Up the Dust, which I've had the pleasure of listening to and really enjoying. Some awesome production stuff and just great overall vibes coming out of that music. So I think if you haven't heard it yet, you'd really enjoy it. Gert, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. I'm just representing the three other band members here as well.
Right, so you're 1/4 of the band. Congratulations on the new EP, by the way. That just came out very recently, yesterday, I believe. So that's a huge accomplishment. I know that must feel pretty good.
It's good to have it out the door.
Yeah.
So, it's been in the works. It always takes a while. I guess most people who listen to your podcast are music makers. So all of you know how it is.
Right. Yeah, sometimes the stuff that gets released is almost old to you by the time it gets released.
Oh yeah, there were a couple. There's 2 songs on there that are definitely 3 years old, maybe 4 years old.
Yeah.
So they've been catching some dust on my hard drive. So
right.
we kicked up the dust. However,
Literally, yeah.
kind of.
Well, that's got to be a great feeling, and I always like to remind anyone, it's a huge accomplishment. Anytime you release things, most people that start making music never get to that point, and to find your way through, it's never easy, no matter how many times you do it. And I haven't spoken to anyone on this podcast that's told me it's very easy. I just show up and the albums come out of me, and so. Remember, everybody, that it is a huge accomplishment, and also for you guys, I hope you're celebrating and enjoying in that very much.
Yes, most definitely.
So you said you're 1/4 of the band. Do you want to tell us what your role is exactly in the group? This is interesting today because bands are so. What is a band anymore, right? It used to be pretty simple. I play the guitar, I play the bass, and now, you guys especially have some interesting overlap, I'm sure, too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's been not easy to figure out which role belongs to who, and just like you say, there's overlap, and it's not like the Beatles anymore, where you have 2 singers and then a drummer and a bass, and then the guitars. We have bass, we have guitar, we have some horns, like we have a saxophone, we have a trumpet, or rather a cornet, which is a shorter, smaller version of a trumpet, which I play. Yet, since we're mostly into the organic, I automatically say organic, into the electronic/organic scene, music, we don't necessarily need guitars. We don't necessarily need a bass guitar. We don't even necessarily need horns or wind instruments or whatever, because we have a computer. So as a result, some music is made on computer exclusively, and there's no horns, there's no guitars even coming into the songs. So then it becomes a little bit of a challenge. Like, how are we going to bring this in a live situation? But we can chat perhaps more on that later. But my role specifically is basically I kind of operate the studio. So basically, when we get together, all 4 of us in the studio, I'll be at the controls of the Ableton. In our case, that's the DAW that we use. And we'll record everyone's ideas, or we'll try and come up with some stuff. Sometimes it's all 4 of us in the studio. Sometimes it's gonna be 2 by 2, like 2 of the musicians get together in their own home studio or in one of their home studio as well. Sometimes someone just comes up with something by himself, and then afterwards we kind of jam over that idea that musician has already kind of worked out. So there's many different ways of getting to a result. There's no one right way. Some songs come to existence after a jam, where all 4 of us just pick up an instrument, and other times it just comes from sitting behind the computer and trying this and then that and then that and then that, and weeks pass and you're getting kind of you're banging your head against the wall because you're thinking, this is the shit. We just need to finish it. We're at 85%, but that last 15% it's not coming. So I'm guessing, seeing by your smile, it's recognizable to you as well, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Once you get the first 85% done, you can work on the second 85%. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So there's many different ways that we go about making our songs. My role is basically, or the studio where I live is where we will eventually all of it arrive and receive final treatment. So the mixing is going to happen here. Sometimes also the mastering. So, for example, for the last EP that we did, I did the mixing and the mastering, all also in the studio. And then, other than that, yeah, some trumpet, like I mentioned earlier, is on my plate as well, but limited amounts.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some videos of various types of wind instruments actually with you guys. And it adds a really nice texture. It's, the air, the breath of the human voice, even, I think, is just a helpful ingredient to start bringing, especially music that is kind of living in the computer. It brings it to life, literally breathes life into it, whether it's a singer and especially like a wind instrument like that. It's a very nice touch. I enjoyed that a lot about your music.
I appreciate it. It's I guess it just happened. We came a little bit from a background of, well, I don't want to call it a background, but Asbrand, my buddy who originally actually started Stavroz, and then pretty much instantaneously came to me and said like, hey, let's do this together. He had this love of Balkan music back in 2012, 2011. There were some good artists at that moment, like also Goran Bregovic and these types of artists. So we started out with trying to make some of these Eastern European influenced electronic music. So we were on one hand we were into the old Buka Shade and this minimalist German techno, minimal techno kind of vibe. And on the other hand, the very full and rich Balkan songs with a lot of wind instruments, horns, like very opulent and very present. So kind of found a way to balance that somehow, I guess. And that's where the horns came from and still are coming from. And that's also where sort of the name came from, the name of Stavros, as it is a name that it's a Greek name and it's more common in East and Southeast of Europe. So hence a little peek into that as well.
Shout out to that, yeah. I like that about what you guys do because it is at times very minimal, but then it gets almost cinematic and really kind of grandiose. So you guys have a lot of dynamic range to work with, and you take a lot of advantage of that. Where sometimes, especially in the performances that I've seen, where you guys get real, almost down to nothing, and then next thing you know, where kind of like everything's out, all the bells, the whistles, and everything is going.
Yeah.
It makes for an exciting journey as the listener, and I'm sure as an audience member as well.
I would love to be able to see it from the point of view of the audience. Of course, we can videotape it and then watch the entire show, but I don't know. It's still different to really live it as an audience member to see it. Because when you're on stage yourself, you're so deep in it, and you're doing something that you will actually never that you will never witness the way someone else witnesses it. So it's a very weird paradox somehow. You're doing something and
yeah.
You
I
have to
know.
trust other people to like it.
You got to go by their reactions. I mean, I know that feeling playing in bands, doing live performances. It's, it's kind of like the curse of the band. You don't ever get to be in the dance if you're in the band, or you never get to experience what it feels like from that outside. There's this weird thing that happens that you have to be lost in the music to some degree, but you also have to be paying attention as well to what's going on and making sure things are running as expected. There's this kind of letting go and also holding on that as an audience member, you can just kind of let whatever's happening take over in a certain way.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the curse of
Especially,
us. We don't get that.
and yeah, you make a good point, and especially in the electronic music scene, where
Mhm.
you're on dark dance floors with flashing lights, sometimes a bit more than other times, but it's really more about the hypnotizing feel.
Right.
At least it is for me. When I go out to party, I prefer I like it that it's repetitive, basically, the
Mm.
type of music that we do. And the whole night becomes a journey. So I like that you said earlier that our music can turn into a journey, and that is exactly what we're trying to do.
Mm.
Make people basically do a DJ set, or make it appear as it is a DJ set, but we're performing it live. We
Right.
have instrument on stage, and from the first second to the last second, we kind of really put everything together, make all the puzzle pieces fit, make sure the transitions work out the way we want them the way we want them to. When we transition from one song into another, what is the key of the next song? How do we go to that key?
Mm.
So sometimes we even rehearsing more on the transition than on the songs themselves, because there's different energy from one song to another. There's different intensity. There's different tempo. So uh, it's a continuous journey for us in order to make that journey and to make it work as well,
Mm-hmm.
to make it fit. And DJ sets are also like that. It's about intensity. It's about energy. It's about bringing more energy and then knowing when to decrease and when you've given enough. And so, uh, yeah, that's a bit of an exercise that we've been going through to learn. And we're blessed that we have two DJs on board and two proper musicians, like, who are very skilled at their instrument. And I don't count myself even though I play trumpet on the stage, I don't count myself as the classic band member. I was always a DJ, same as Asbrand, who originally started Stavroz, that I mentioned before. We're the DJs, we're the guys that come from this more minimalistic, techno-ish kind of
Mm.
vibe. And then there's Peter and Maxim, and they are coming more from the rock bands. So they know how to be on a stage, they know how to behave there, um, and how to operate in a band. So
Mm.
it's a good balance that we're two and two, and we can kind of show to each other what is our world, and let the others pick up on that, and vice versa.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a smooth way to bring things together. I come from a more like rock band background myself, playing guitar and making songs. They kind of like these self-contained things. Um, as I've gotten more into the music production, recording, and playing around with synthesizers, electronic music, I've grown to really appreciate the way things are woven together. So a lot of times with the rock band, da na 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 na, here's our song, and it's done. Thank you very much. And now like the show stopped, and then we move on. Here's the next song, right? But finding ways to just kind of make it a cohesive thing. I mean, when I watch your performances, it's almost hard to tell when the songs change. It just sort of morphs and transforms, and I really like that. And as far as like playing in rock bands go, I enjoy figuring out ways to work that kind of stuff in, even if it's just you're making noise before you connect to the next thing, because it does help you pull things together. And those are nice points to bring the dynamics down or change the energy a little bit so that you can bridge to the next, leg of the experience.
And that's why it becomes important to just rehearse those transitions as well. Sometimes we have people asking us, do you play the same set every time? And it's tempting to then say, oh no, every time is different. But basically, yes, theoretically, every time is different because we leave room for improvisation. And one single melody line doesn't have to be the exact same melody line the next time. But the sequence of songs is going to be basically exactly the same. From Friday to Saturday, it's going to be the same. If you're coming to see us Friday in December, and then you see us again on a Friday in July, we're going to have made some changes by then because this live show is always evolving. We're always throwing out songs. We're changing sequences of songs in order to try and optimize the energy levels, the intensity, like I said before. But in general, if you see us twice in 1 week or in 2 weeks, most probably the sequence of songs is going to be the same. What will be different is improvisation moments, your surroundings, the energy levels that you get with interaction with the crowd, these types of things.
Yeah, you kind of know where you're going, but you might take a different route, like driving a different way to get a different view once in a while.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Well, that's nice because I guess you really do, obviously you're playing with 4 people. You need to have some understanding of where we're going. We can't just pick it out of nowhere every single time. That would cause a lot of confusion. But the opportunity to have some wiggle room in how you get there must keep it more interesting even for you guys, as far as it's not just this kind of routine where sometimes when you do that, I mean, it's nice to get your set down and your performance down real solid, but sometimes you forget to go into the song and you're just going through the songs, if you know what I mean. So I think that's a smart way to maintain that.
Yeah, we don't want to over rehearse as well, not because it is our intention to keep us on our toes or anything, also because we'd rather perform than rehearse all the time. And after a while, we get good at being efficient in rehearsing. And sometimes a performance is a bit of a rehearsal as well. Sometimes something goes wrong and then we have to fix it in the moment right there and then. So those are also one of those moments that you're like, okay, the sound card just dropped and do something,
Right.
Try to not have entire silence, or maybe the electricity of the entire house just stops, and then you have to pick it up. From where will you pick it up? How? So there's always these moments where you're challenged, and that's in the moment itself. It's nerve-wracking, but it pushes you to find creative and good solutions.
Now, let me ask you a little bit, like technically, what you guys have going on. You said you've got like Ableton Live running. Is it just one Ableton Live rig, or do you have more than one?
We have three at this
Oh, you
point.
have three. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So three of the four musicians on stage have Ableton, and we all sync through Link, which
You're
is
using
the
Link to
option
do
of
that. That's cool.
yeah, yeah,
So
just
Link,
connect.
so in that way, yeah, I'll say it for people listening too. Link is sort of like a Wi-Fi connection between your computer. It could be your phone. It could be various apps and DAWs where they all understand the timing. It's as if somebody's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, and individual computers can start and stop and change the tempo, slow things down. So you have like a lot of. It's such a cool idea because it's more like the way people play music together. In that, if I speed up, you're going to come with me. So when I raise my BPM, your BPM goes up as well. So
Yeah.
that's really cool to hear that you guys are doing that. And that way too, you have, I guess, like you said, if one of the sound cards go down, you have something else going still.
We could have something else going. We don't have after 10 years, we don't have a backup system.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes a sound card crashes or just stops working or has bad connection. And then, depending on which sound card it is, that musician is without his tool on stage. If it's
Like
mine, it's tough if it's anyone's hard drive, obviously, because you have a problem to solve right then and there. Um, on my computer, we have basically the backbone of the entire live set running. So all of the drums, or most of the drums, will come from my computer, from my sound card, from my Ableton, and then some extras as well. Perhaps a 808 bass line or whatever it might be, or some synths that we don't have enough hands to do it ourselves, or joining, or in the background, or some pads or something. So if my sound card drops, a lot all of a sudden disappears. So often we're left with some keys, a bass guitar, and a guitar, or perhaps a saxophone or a trumpet if we're just in a song that has one of the horns or wind instruments in it or something. So that can be challenging, obviously. But like you said, the link system allows everyone to be synced. So when anyone brings down or turns up or brings up the tempo, all the others follow. And as a result, also, for example, the drum computer that is on the other side of the stage with my buddy Asbrand will follow. So he can just very easily not really care about what tempo we're in, and it'll just follow. And there is some moments in the live show where we do actually change the tempo quite a bit, where we go from 75 BPM to like 140 or something. So that is a large amount of changes for a tempo. So it's important that we have that function, and it's also a lot of fun in the studio, especially when you're making electronic music and you're synced and you can just play around with some loops that you're making. You don't have to worry about anything because everyone is going exactly in the right tempo, and it doesn't sound like one major chaotic yeah like a chaos of sounds, just one big ocean.
Yeah, and it's nice that there's no one that's like the boss, the master, and the others are followers, and that way you can have that freedom, just like real musicians. It makes it a much more musical. It's so much fun to do that. I'm happy to hear you guys are making use of that. That's fun. So, what about the guitars and the bass? Are they running through the computers being processed that way? They have separate amplifiers? Are they outside of that system?
The guitar, since recently, the guitar is in that system. It goes through, so Maxim's guitar is connected to his sound card. And then the output of the sound card goes straight into the mixing board that we also, excuse me, straight into the mixing board that we also have on stage. It used to not be like that. And I'm trying to remember the reason why we did it. I believe to have some more options when it comes to effects. So you wouldn't have to bring this pedal, that pedal, that pedal.
Right.
And it makes it easier to travel as well. And it allows a little bit more versatility as well, because it will allow for Maxim to use a MIDI controlled device, whatever it is. In his case, it is a MIDI twister, MIDI fighter twister.
It's a 16 knobs,
black squares.
Right?
Yeah. To just manipulate whatever effect he wants to manipulate by hand without having to use his feet and things like that. So that's why we are running the guitar through his sound card. The bass guitar just goes into a DI. DI goes straight into the mixing board. The M32 is what we use, the Midas M32. And just like that, the trumpet and the saxophone also go straight into the mixing board. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. And then Asbrand's sound card is actually the mixing board. So he's the third one to have Ableton running. And he basically just connects to the M32 with USB. And the M32 is going to pop up in his Ableton. And it'll be his device. And can have whatever he does in Ableton immediately on a fader right next to him on the stage.
Right. So he's performing the studio, basically. That's his instrument.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Every possible sound source ends up with him. And he does a mix on stage, kind of like Underworld has been doing it for years. I don't know if they still do it like they used to do it 20 years ago, where they have this big analog mixing board on stage. Perhaps they also switched to digital boards now to
a little lighter and
ease of make it a bit easier. But yeah, that's how we try to work. And then other than that, he also adds some keys, some extra drums, some triggers, some samples also with his Ableton and keyboard and a little drum computer as well besides him.
So if you guys all have that kind of versatility, I can understand why it's hard to really define your role in the group. You know, you're not the bass player. You're not, well, maybe you have a bass player, but maybe that was the one bad example for you guys. But you have all of those other spots that can be, you can change your own live set, you know, anytime you want to fit whatever you need to do. And so can the other members. Yeah. That's some powerful flexibility.
Yeah, we're very, very dependent on ourselves. We can pretty much make it as easy for ourselves as we want or as hard on ourselves as we want. But the most important thing is when we make changes, we just the four of us need to be informed. That's it. We don't travel with the front of house engineer. We don't even travel with the roadie. Most of the time, we don't even travel with a tour manager or anything. So our roles are very defined, even outside. Well, defined and not defined. Not defined on stage because, like I said, we can make it as easy and as hard on us as we want. Off stage, one person will be more occupied with making sure we're on the right time at the train station or at the airport, and another person's going to be like, oh, okay, let's make sure we collect the receipts because we have to make a budget for this tour so we can know how much wages can be paid to anyone.
Right.
That's obviously a different part of the music business outside of the production itself. But yeah, lots of versatility and not many people we have to give responsibility to other than ourselves or have to even keep up to date.
So I guess you guys are pretty clear with each other. Okay, your job, the non-musical job here is, you said, collect the receipts. Like, so you guys have those roles all discussed and worked out with each other.
Let's say it grew naturally.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think those are important things to get straight when you're in groups of people, because when they get unspoken, that's when misunderstandings happen. That's when expectations aren't met. And a lot of times that's where the drama starts happening and the resentments start happening. And it's a hard thing, having four people do anything in life, right? To have four people do anything together in life takes a lot of coordination and a lot of trust and a lot of responsibility taking. So it's understandable for you guys to have been together playing 10 plus years now. It's something I'm sure you had to get right.
Yeah, it goes with ups and downs as it does in any relationship. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, with your partner at home as well. If you never have an argument, well, let me just say, I'd be very surprised if you never have an argument with
either
anyone
really,
around
really
you.
good or really, really bad.
Yes.
But it's true. If you haven't come to an agreement over, say, the household chores, then if I look and see the dishes aren't done again, I might start getting resentful, and that's unhealthy. It needs to be discussed and worked out. There needs to be an understanding.
Yeah, that has been definitely something that we have learned throughout the years to try and also communicate to each other, and then also receive that communication in a constructive way, in a way that you realize only the good intentions of the person sharing his frustrations or whatever it can be, you know. Because at the end of the day, we just have to trust each other that we have the same goal, the same eventual goal in mind. And that trust is definitely there. I mean, there's no one in the band that's putting his ego first. There's no one trying to earn more. There's no one really trying to cut corners or anything. Everyone is aware of each and everyone's position in the band, responsibilities, and I like to believe feels good in that place. And if they do not feel good in that place, that they have the liberty of talking about that.
Mm-hmm. So important. So important. Yeah. I've found that is almost the secret to keeping it together. You know, that you can be open. The ego has to just be let go. You know, once you're a group, right? So that should be the most important thing. And it's good to hear you guys have figured that out and have those relationships with each other. It's hard to find, so it's precious and important to nurture that and make sure it stays that way.
Yeah. It's been a journey. Also that.
Yeah, lots of journeys in this whole thing, right? I'm curious about the journey of the song too. If I had to guess, it sounds like it's kind of you guys are a band, really. You just have more futuristic instruments than we are used to hearing. So maybe in like traditional terms when we say band, but do you guys tend to perform out the songs, jam them out, and then they start getting recorded that way? Or is it more they get recorded first? Like if you were in a band, right, you kind of work them out, then you go to record. Where do you guys fall on that continuum? Because sometimes it's the songs are produced fully, recorded, and then we figure out how to play them.
We're on both sides of that spectrum. Sometimes we'll make something and finish it entirely in the studio, and only then will we add it to our performances. Sometimes we make something in the studio that is not finished yet, and we're very excited, and we're like, okay, we're gonna play this in our next live performance. Change the live set, jump in the Ableton, add it in, and then we'll start playing it. And as we play it, we will just step out of we have these improvisation moments, the moments of freedom, and we'll stumble on ideas that we stumble on them, and then we look at each other on stage, and we're like, yes, yeah, next week in the studio. Yes, okay, let's do that. So we'll have these kind of happy accidents happen to us on stage as well, even before a song is finished. And then even beyond that, we have songs that we play live that will never be released, that will even never be properly recorded, just because they work well live. And there's one example that we had tried to record in the studio, and basically we're disappointed with how it turned out, because live it is powerful and it hits the spot, and then as soon as you sit down in the studio, it kind of falls and it goes nowhere, or it doesn't have that same intensity, that same it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit so well on a record. It fits much better on the stage, and that's also something peculiar. That was also a good lesson to learn, basically.
Some things are best left for the performances. Just don't find the home in the recorded material.
No, peculiar. Sometimes how that goes, because we were thinking originally this song always works very well when we play it live, so we should record it and put it on our album or our next EP. And I have a recording on my hard drive in the studio, and it's going to remain there forever. Because I don't know, it's too clean, perhaps, or or we have been trained so much into this live version of that song that it will never bring us what we're used to, never bring us that energy, or never bring us that same feeling when it is recorded as when we play it live. It's a sort of demo love, I believe. I don't know if that's the same term in English, but in Dutch, we have a term, it's called demo love.
Yeah, we say like demo-itis, where you kind of fall in love with the kind of idea of it. You know, it might be something about the energy you had when you first, usually it's a recording though, it's a little bit the other way around, but the energy of that recording, we just, you know, it was the day we wrote the song and there was something there. And every time we try to recreate it, it feels like, you know, staged or something. Doesn't quite capture that. Yeah.
Like a
I
bad
could
clone.
see that. Yeah, right. Like it's just it's like a drawing of the scenery. You got to see the scenery. But I could see how that would work too with performance because especially if there's some wiggle room in how it gets performed every time. So where you might do it a little bit differently each time. And there's this sort of realm of possibilities you can take. But as soon as you record it, it's one path. And now it doesn't have that sort of potential to go this way or that way on a given day.
Yeah.
It's almost like the undemo, the unknown, the possibilities of it are so fun. I have songs like that too that I have for live performance that I've never actually recorded definitively. I have lots of recordings of different performances, but sometimes they go a little bit different. And now that song exists in all these kind of alternate universes. There's these different parallel dimension versions of it. And to me, they're all the song. They're hard to just say, it's going to go this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It's kind of a cool thing. And you guys have a way of working together that kind of allows for some of that in both directions, where you can have your kind of definitive recorded stuff, but then also it sort of organically grows out of the jams as well.
Yeah, it can go in any direction. And we've seen proof in the performances that we do and in the songs that we make that everything is possible. You make it in the studio and and it's super powerful and it's an excellent, you believe an excellent DJ track, but then when we play it live, it doesn't work. Or we then move it to a different moment in the live show and perhaps then it does work, or perhaps it still doesn't work. And then the other way around, and on live performances, we play something, works every time, we bring it to the studio. There it goes. So,
yeah, different medium.
Yeah.
But it's cool because you guys are proof that electronic music can be live music. It can be interesting in that way. It was kind of a revelation for me when I first realized it. It wasn't until I started using Ableton Live, really, where I started to like, oh, you know, I could perform live electronic music, and it's just as diverse and interesting as if there was a band up here. There's all these freedoms, different types of freedoms, I guess, but a lot of room for expression. And it's not just, you know, as you kind of mentioned, like somebody asking you, do you guys play the same thing every time? It's not like, all right, track 3, play, and it just goes. And yeah, I can turn a couple knobs and maybe play a guitar over it, but it's essentially the same thing. It's much more than that. There's so much you can do, and especially with having multiple setups like that. So there's almost like these stations that you guys each operate.
Yeah, you make a good point there. There's definitely a lot of freedom. And like I mentioned before, we can go as far as we want, and we can make it as easy on ourselves as we want as well. We can make it to a point that we just press play, and everything else that we do is just wave our arms around. If we want to, we can do it. Obviously, anyone can do it. But obviously, we would be very sick of it very soon. That's not why we love music. That's not why you become a musician. become a musician because you love music and you love playing music. So it would be a shame to be just pressing a button and then letting go and then collect the dollars. I'm sure it exists as well. It happens.
Yeah.
But that's a different topic.
In those cases, I think you start to really notice how much the audience plays a role. Because I've had that too, where I'm literally playing the same recordings as I did a week ago, but it feels so much different because of who's there and their attitude and how they're feeling in that night. Where it's kind of mind blowing. It's like this, like performing music, however, whatever you want to, if we just count anything as performance, pressing play or starting with just an instrument, and so much of it is about the energy, whether it's the energy you're putting out and the energy you're receiving, this transfer. I really understood that when I found that playing the same recordings night after night yielded such different results. Because now the music isn't affected. With a band, you could say, we weren't into it. We weren't feeling it. We messed up a few times. That's why it didn't go well. But it really is so much about the interaction, the environment you're in.
Most definitely. And it's always almost guessing where it goes wrong. If you do a performance and you're not feeling comfortable after the performance because of how it went. And like you said, perhaps we look at ourselves and be like, oh, I wasn't in it, or yeah, sorry guys, today was not my day and I screwed up in that moment or that moment. Or we can not look inwards and look outwards and be like, oh, this crowd here today, this was not the right place for us, or maybe they were expecting something different. Or you can even go to like the sound system, the engineers here, or why was it like that, or the acoustics of the room. And I guess that at the end of the day, it's pretty much always a combination of all these factors. It's never just one thing. It's never just only the acoustics. It's never just one musician playing a couple bad notes, or the bass guitar is not working because it's an active bass guitar and the battery is dead, and it takes you 3 minutes to figure out that actually it's an active. It's easy to just after a performance say like, this was the thing that made it go wrong, but it's never as clear cut as that, I think. Nevertheless, it doesn't change anything that has transpired. We can only just learn from it every time.
Yeah, that's the thrill of it, right? I've been in performances where maybe for whatever reason the band is a little tense, uncomfortable, and maybe one member kind of like puts it on a little, like, oh, all right, come on, like, let's bring it in, get excited, and then that spreads and then it comes to life. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. Sometimes people bring each other down, and it's a big thing to be thinking about, just what you're putting out. And that sometimes, like you said, there's factors, it might be you're just at the wrong show that people wanted to hear this kind of music. I mean, I've been at plenty of those where it was one style of music and I show up out of left field and doing something totally different. It's just not going to work sometimes.
Yeah. Right place, right time. Wrong place, right time. I don't know. Everything can happen.
Yeah, something funny's happening in the news that day.
Yeah, true.
I want to ask you, one fun thing about looking at the live performances you guys do. Sometimes you're at festivals in front of people, and then there's a couple here where there's one, it looks like you guys are like on like a little island. I didn't quite get where it was, but there's an overhead view of this you guys are kind of outside in the wilderness, basically, and right on the water.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the one at Fort Saint. Is that Einart? Fort Saint Einart in France.
Port Saint-Hénard, I think is how you
Yeah,
pronounce it. Something like that. Yeah, that is of Cercle. Yeah.
and there you
The
guys are
one,
like on top of I guess a fort, right? So,
yeah,
um, way different. I mean, now you don't have that audience interaction, but you do have this like nature interaction going on, this environmental interaction. Um, yeah, just curious, like what that's like, how that feels for you guys when you, on one hand, you have all this energy coming at you from other people, and then now it's just the group in this interesting place. You,
it's it's a big difference. It's a big difference
mm,
because there's the difference between having 1,000 people in front of you versus having uh, just a forest and surrounded by a lake, and especially also a lot of mosquitoes in that one video you mentioned earlier. No, but yeah, I seem to notice that we play more as we would do a recording when we don't have an audience. So
mm,
everything is cleaner, everything is soberer. Um, uh, in contrast to when we have a bunch of people in front of us that are shouting at us and just throwing all their energy on us, and that just makes you play differently, that makes you behave differently,
mm,
that makes such an enormous difference. So if you see that video of us at the lake or of us in Port for Saint-Hénard, it's going to be it's going to be very different.
mm.
So you might see us first online and then see a performance of us, and you'd probably be surprised.
Yeah,
It happens sometimes that people come up to us and say, like, I did not expect this level of fire,
yeah.
actually.
Well, there's
Just
a
because
performance I
of,
was watching. Literally, your guitar and bass player are jumping up and down with the music. They're not doing that in the forest on the lake. It's much more focused. And I know for my own self, when we practice, it's much more trying to be deliberate about what you're playing. But then when you get out there, things get wilder and messier and sloppier, usually. Out of the In exchange for that energy, it's like fair trade. I feel it's worth it,
yeah,
to play a little sloppier, but we're gonna go a little wilder today and
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
connect a little, tap into that energy of the night.
Yeah, yeah. For a long time, I underestimated the strength of that. Me personally, then, I'm not speaking on behalf of the band because there's people in the band who very well understand the value of that energy and of giving that energy and maybe playing a little bit more sloppy in return. But, like you said, that's a fair trade. And I
Mm,
definitely agree. For me, it took a while to understand that there is such a thing as energy on a stage and as it translating towards the audience.
mm,
Um, I was, I myself, I'm not the biggest dancer. I'm not the most enthusiastic person at a performance when I'm in the crowd myself, then. Uh, if a band is playing and I love their music and they will just be standing still, I wouldn't mind. I'd be just enjoying the music. For example, most extreme example would be Kraftwerk.
hmm.
There's just the guys standing behind a lectern, pretty much,
Right.
doing God knows what, and just standing still most of largest part of the performance. Or there's moderat, that is also okay. There's a little bit more action going on, but it's also just three guys in their own station, not necessarily jumping up and down and trying to interact with the crowd so heavily. So this is the stuff that I kind of connect to, and it was eye-opening for me to notice that energy coming from the stage is a thing, and it translates to people, and then the audience, give that back to the band. And it was only by being on stage myself that I understood that energy actually comes back to you as an artist, as a musician. And then it feeds you to go even further again. So for me personally, it was an exercise in letting go. And letting go of just, I'm here to have fun, and I hope you're here to have fun as well. And let me give you some encouragement. Just let it out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see some people all over the world just confidently throwing themselves in the audience and not having a care in the world. It's a beautiful thing.
I think that's something we're kind of chasing a lot of times when we go to a concert, when we play a concert, when we experience these things, is we want to sort of just get lost in it and taken away, and whatever worries and problems we have are going to wait. They'll be there when we're done. They'll wait for us. But for now, it's just about this thing. I think being a guitar player, you're kind of lucky because you have movement. You don't have to stand in the same spot. You can walk around with your guitar a little bit. You can roll around on the floor with it if you want. Whereas certain other instruments, if it's a keyboard or some kind of controller, electronics, you're a little bit more stuck behind it. And guitarists are lucky because we get to kind of run around, and the foolishness is almost built into the playing,
Yeah, we have our band members sometimes just wandering off, heading out into the audience.
Yeah.
And just standing there playing with people around them. So yeah, the liberty is amazing.
Where did he go? There's only three of us now. I hear
stressing about the jack cable, making sure that it doesn't get disconnected, or it is long enough for him to journey God knows where.
I saw a band not too long ago, a band called Idols, really fun rock band, and their guitar player was out in the crowd and being held up, and they had a guy, I assume he was hired by the band just to feed the wire to his guitar. Like his job is he's going to go out there, and his job is to make sure the cable has enough slack and isn't going to get pulled out. I was like, that's so cool. Because they've realized this is part of what we do. We're going to get in there with everybody, and we need a guy to do that for us.
And I'm also surprised to see how the audience is somehow also aware of that. For example,
respectful of it.
Well, on one hand, definitely respectful, but on the other hand, and this would just, me personally, it would pass me by. If you have an audience here, let me try and make a little horrible visual presentation. Guitar player steps off the stage, goes to the audience and goes around and comes back on the stage like this. The cable is behind these people. So try and get the cable from behind them, and you're kind of stuck actually. But many of these people just realize oh yes, well, we're going to make sure the cable's actually going this way. And I see it often happening that they're passing it over their heads back to the front of the stage. It's amazing how often this actually works out excellently.
Yeah. How often do crowds of people in that state of high energy cooperate and work together to solve a problem like that?
I'm surprised to see uh, how present they still are, how they know
Hmm.
what's going on, and how they can be even proactive.
Yeah. To do the job of the roadie.
Yes.
That's cool. They must enjoy what they hear because they want it to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Maybe it is that trust in them that they're like, all right, maybe I get to do something again this time.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit about just this idea of combining electronic elements in your music with more acoustic stuff. Um, so sometimes I find it's a little difficult to get them to work together. And I think this has to do with the fact that our acoustic instruments are not precisely in tune all the time, and they're not precisely in time, and they're recorded with a microphone, so they have their own kind of atmosphere to them. Whereas if we're programming stuff into the computer, it's right in tune. If you put the tuner up, it just locks right in there, center exactly the note you want. And if you're programming it, these notes are right on the grid where they belong. Sometimes I find that it's like they're just from different worlds. And when I listen to them together, they just feel like they're not the two things playing at the same time, but they're not together. You guys do a really nice job of blending all of that, where it's, sometimes you can't even tell. You know, what am I hearing? That's an acoustic instrument. What is that? A synthesizer? Is that a flute? Is that like what's going on? There's a nice cooperation between those elements.
Mhm.
Is this something you give much thought to? Do you find it challenging? Is it just working out the way you guys play?
Um, it was challenging at first when we did Stavroz tracks. Um, but I think we kind of found our ways to deal with that. And I think a large part of it is it starts with what samples you work with. So on the you have to adjust your electronic side to the acoustic side. You cannot adjust your acoustic side because you only have what you have. I mean, especially when it comes to horns or wind instruments, they sound the way they do.
Hmm.
You cannot um, you cannot make a trumpet sound any different than a trumpet, or you'd have to use like sourdine or it's the French word I'm using now. You have to use these cups, but it's still a trumpet. It still has the same
Hmm.
characteristics, basically. So I believe the trick for us was in using and finding samples, drum samples mostly, and synth sounds that glue with these acoustic instruments and find the right space for them also in the mix. And a lot of this we were inspired by Stimming, who was already on
Hmm.
your show in the past as
Yeah.
well. He's the I don't know if he realizes it, but I think he's the master of this, organic sound of
Hmm.
making an electronic sound, an electronic song sound like it's coming out of real life, like it's not even coming from a computer or from machines.
Right.
Um, and there's this even a whole genre grew for it from it, and they call it organic house. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the guilty one. He's the culprit. No, he found a way, or he was definitely an innovator in how electronic music can sound, how it sounds round and full, and how it can sound acoustic, but at the same time have that electronic power. And that's where, yeah, like I said, that's where we had a lot of our inspiration. Simply figuring out what type of kick drum to use, what type of clap to use, or snare, and once you figure that out, you're already a long way, because these are the elements in the songs, especially in electronic music. These are the elements that will return most often: the kick, the clap, and the hi-hats, if you use hi-hats. And kind of try to give them a acoustic overlay, but underneath give it the electronic power. So yeah, it's that is what I kind of guess it boils down to. Basically, leaving space for those instruments, and adapting the samples and sounds, the remaining samples and sounds of the song to that instrument. And after a while, you get so acquainted to these samples and to these sounds that you just go directly to them. And then you create something, and afterwards you add an acoustic instrument, and it just fits because you've done it a couple times in the past, or many times in the past. Depends. And that's kind of how we try to go about it.
Yeah, makes sense.
There is no one surefire way to.
You don't have like the keyboard
to
shortcut.
do it right. Well, Alt F4.
Okay, I'll give that a shot later. Look at that, the stimming shortcut.
Yeah, or Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
Don't try the Alt F4 as well if you're doing something important.
Yeah, well, it does make sense because it's a little bit, you have more room with those sounds to take them back into the world, whereas it's hard to, unless you're really over processing things and making your acoustic instruments sound kind of unnatural, which I suppose is another direction you could go, but not if you want to keep it organic. You want to have that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, otherwise you venture into the realm of synthesizers, I believe. If you're going to be adapting a guitar and then you perhaps run your guitar through a pedal that makes it sound like a synthesizer, then okay, yeah, sure, it can get some crazy results, but you perhaps might as well use a synthesizer, or I don't want to say it defeats the purpose, and these pedals definitely have their value, for sure, because we've also done amazing things with them, and unexpected things happen. But that is not the conversation here that we're having. It's more about like making sure that sound of a guitar, the sound of a guitar, not the changed and affected sound of a guitar, fits into electronic music. Someone else that is very good at this is Nicolas Jarre, for example. These acoustic elements, bringing them into an electronic environment. But I would actually almost say it in the other way around. It's not bringing the acoustic elements into electronic environment. It's adapting the electronic environment so it fits around the acoustic elements. That's kind of that's what I'm trying to get at. And for example, Dark Side of Jar is also like electronically enhanced and infused acoustic music or electric music, electric guitars. He's also one of those really excellent music producers, obviously.
Yeah, it all feels like part of the same world. It's something I love about what you guys do. There's classical guitar, there's piano, you hear flutes, horns, various other, bass guitar. So he's always got his Fender Mustang bass, which I thought was cool, going, and it all feels together. You guys are creating this world that it's a world. It's not these separate things we're trying to stick together. It all comes together as one thing really nicely. And that's hard to do. You bring in lots of separate things and a lot of different types of separate things, and for it to become one is really good. It seems like you guys have that on a lot of levels with how you work together, even the stuff you're talking about outside of the band. It's this oneness we're going for. And it's pretty cool how that's the magic of playing music with other people, I guess, where you can bring a number of individuals together, a bunch of ones together, and get a bigger one than it would be if they were all separate. Greater than the sum is greater than its parts. Whatever that expression is. I'm losing my memory of, but it becomes a bigger thing than the separate things put together.
2 + 2 is 5.
Yeah, this kind of thing, right? So I think Kick Up the Dust is everywhere now, right? I saw it on Apple Music and Spotify, and you've got YouTube videos as well if people prefer to go there. And you said you just finished up playing some shows, so you got some time to prepare for the next leg, and you are doing some more in the start of next year, right?
Yeah, we're going to be heading out to Australia in the beginning of next year and spend some time in the southeast side of the world. I was going to say corner, but there's no real corners on a ball.
Right.
And then we have I like to believe it. And then we have some performance here in our hometown in Ghent. And we go to London as well. We've got some things ready to go. Or we've had some places where we're expected to make an appearance. And other than that, I think we'll just be making new music and diving into the studio soon.
It's so cool how you guys are able to sort of do both things at the same time, that you build a lot of this improvisation into your set, that I'm sure a lot of these ideas for new songs start getting born on stage and in rehearsals. And it must keep it fresh that it's not one or the other. Like we're playing until we can't stand it anymore. And then we're going to record until we can't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really sustainable way to do it.
Yes, and even something that I forgot to mention earlier about where to find inspiration, and if it comes from a more rock band environment or more from a DJ background, or it's from jamming together, or it is from just two of the musicians together in the studio. Other situations have happened as well where or that, like you mentioned, just that we're on stage and just something magical out of nowhere happens, and we know, like, okay, let's keep this in mind. We also used to make a bunch of DJ sets for our national radio here in Belgium. And we still play DJ sets as well. And this is also an excellent source of inspiration, because on one hand, we're finding new music. And on the other hand, we're DJing. So we're mixing those songs together. And by mixing the songs and mashing them up and sometimes editing them, there's these sometimes really amazing things that just also happen. For example, when we make podcasts or podcasts, it's basically DJ sets that we kind of puzzle together in Ableton. So we figure out what is the key of this song, or we have a bunch of songs, and then we say, what are the keys of all these songs? What are the tempos of all these songs? And what is a good song to start the DJ set with? And then we'll kind of take it from there, and we'll combine this first song. For example, it's in G minor, and we'll see what else do we have in a similar tempo, and that is G minor. Oh, this, and this. Which one fits best? Okay, let's try that one. Oh, it doesn't work so much. Let's try another one. Then really like make a very, very, very defined puzzle that often takes a couple days to finish just 1 hour of a DJ set. But in these in these journeys, once again, of searching and trying and trial and error, sometimes something really awesome is hiding as well. Maybe it's an idea for a groove that that just shows itself to you because you're combining 3 songs, or you're using, I don't know, the hi-hats of this song and the beginning of a groove of that song, and adding the vocals of song number C, whatever, and just come up with something that you can consider an edit, but then at the same time is a mashup, or it's a remix, or there's multiple names for it. But it boils down to the fact you're just fooling around with songs, and you're taking them apart, and you're looking at the separate parts and seeing how can what is their strength, and how can they be of value in a different context, and then learn from the results that you get from fooling around, and draw inspiration from there again as well. So keeping up to date with electronic music, or with music in general, and playing around with that music, just like literally dragging it into your Ableton and cutting it up or whatever, and combining it with other things, can be very rewarding and inspiring.
Yeah, I could see that. You might discover new grooves that you can then start to use in your own music, or different textures that work nicely together. It's a cool exercise. And then you have a DJ set too. So
exactly.
You've also learned about some new music. I mean, it's a lot of rewards out of that one activity.
True.
That's a great tip.
Not to be
great
underestimated.
Advice. Yeah.
And especially nowadays with the tools, with all the AI tools, where you can just basically import a song into a software platform, and it will spit out the vocals separately and the drums separately and this and that. What do you need? I'll get it for you.
Yeah, right. Unbake the cake and take the egg out.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, I always thought that was going to be impossible, but 5 years ago even, I was like, it's kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Cool
I felt comfortable that our job was not in danger. well, danger depends on your perspective. But I can kind of understand how AI creates images. Well, no, I say I kind of understand, but I honestly have no clue. But I figured this is totally impossible to do this for sound. I mean, how's it gonna know how to compress something? How's it gonna know how to equalize that type of instrument? How's it gonna know what is an instrument even, and how they come together and what to give priority? Exciting things are waiting for us.
Yeah. We've learned if you just show it enough of it, I think those capture things we do online when you go to log in and it tells you where's the crosswalk, where's the motor. I think that's part of the training. I think that's what you're actually doing. Yeah. And I guess it's like everything for us, right? If you practice long enough, you do something long enough, you start to see the patterns and understand it.
Yeah. True.
But we can be creative with the tools and the new technologies. That's what we've done all the way throughout history, right?
Exactly. That's why we're here also making electronic music and enjoying it. Because someone figured out how to make a pure sine wave and how to make, I want this type of shape of a sound. Okay, there you go.
Right.
Just need a gate and an envelope and a this and an amplifier and okay, lo and behold.
Yeah. So cool. Well, listen, Gert, thank you so much for your time. It's great talking to you. Really fun to learn a little bit behind the scenes of what you guys do and how it works. And ultimately, I'm leaving this conversation feeling inspired and excited to make music myself. So to me, that's one of the greatest gifts a person can give me. So thank you very much.
Happy to help. Happy to have this conversation, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. We'll put all the links into the show notes so that people can find all the stuff we've been talking about, your music, the new album, Kick Up the Dust, available everywhere. Yes, thanks so much.
Thank you as well, Brian.
Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you want to help support the show, the best thing you can do is tell a friend, someone you think that would enjoy the show. I'd also love it if you could leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support my work, you can go to brianfunk.com. I've got tons of Ableton live packs, tutorials, samples. You can check out my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, which gives you 365 short music-making activities to help you get started, stay inspired, and finish more music. And there's also the Music Production Club, where you get my latest releases as soon as they're finished. It gives you access to a community of like-minded people who are making music and sharing ideas. You can share your music, find new collaborators, and participate in our live meetings where we set up some kind of musical challenge and then make music together and share our results at the end. That's the Music Production Club. It's a lot of fun, and you can find that and everything that I do at brianfunk.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and have a great day.